on the side slide.
Kilo Alpha 46, Pooh Bear Hamilby.
297. Hey, we got you in, Robbie.
Hello, welcome back to Fred in the Shed. We're up in the Radio Shack, and another video to help beginners in radio. Maybe people that haven't had a radio before find it all a little bit overwhelming. On this video, we want to talk about the issue when you find yourself with a high SWR. Now, it's most likely, if you've got a modern radio like this 6900, it is most likely when you key up, the radio will then give you a high SWR warning. Or if you monitor the SWR on the radio, you notice that it's gradually climbing. First thing is, because this is a little bit disconcerting when you just start any radio, you've probably spent ages with your setup, and you probably spent hours and hours adjusting your antenna before you put it on the outside of your house, and you got your SWR as best as you possibly could. Maybe you got it down to 1.2, 1.3, something like that. So it is a little bit worrying, and it does kind of throw you into a sense of panic when you suddenly key up and you get this high SWR warning, and you're worried about damaging your radio, and you just don't know what's gone wrong, and it can be a bit overwhelming. It's happened to me a couple of times. It's actually happened to me right now. I was testing a antenna tuner. I hadn't checked my SWR for a long time. I generally use the Yaesu, and I cheat because that's got a built-in antenna tuner, so that gives you SWR of 1-to-1 every time. So I've got the problem, and as I've got the problem, I thought I'd make this video. Now, in my experience, this is just my experience, the high SWR tends to happen in two ways. Firstly, and this is the most common, you switch on your radio. You were using it the day before, it was absolutely fine, and then suddenly you key up and you get this squeal and this high SWR warning, and you just can't understand what's happened. That's normally how it happens. Or another scenario, which is in my case, is the SWR has slowly crept up over a course of weeks and months, mainly between the winter months. It's just gradually crept up until now on certain channels it's quite dangerously high. I think I was getting over 2.3, 2.4 or something like that with the antenna tuner on the lower band. This video is purely going to be my own experience in dealing with high SWR problems. I know a lot of you watching this video are far more experienced on radio than me. You're more qualified. Please feel free right now, leave a comment in the section below if your own experience, how you've had high SWR problems and what the solution was, because that will help people in the future who will watch this video and they'll read the comments, because your problem may be their problem and I might not cover it on this video, so please do that. So what I'm going to start off with is the high SWR that suddenly comes upon you and sort of throws your mind into turmoil, if it's like. First thing to do is basically take a step back from the situation. Don't panic, don't start changing everything. You've got to approach this in a logical manner. Think of what you may have changed since your SWR was fine. For example, and very common, you may have added a linear amplifier to your system, and then now you're getting high SWR problems. This is especially bad on sideband. So the first thing to do, obviously, is to take the amplifier away, remove that. Also, the patch lead you were using, take the patch lead away. Put the antenna directly into the back of the radio, remove anything else in the circuit, then test your SWR. If your SWR drops back to a reasonable level, then it's most likely going to be the patch lead. So again, look at the patch lead. You need to look very carefully at the connections on the patch lead. If you bought the patch lead ready-made, which a lot of people do, don't assume that it's been particularly well soldered. I've had so many ready-made patch leads go bad on me, and I know a lot of you have as well. I've read that in the comments. So again, check the patch lead. If you've got a little multimeter, set that on continuity and just put the two little prongs on the center feed and in the outer earth feed of the patch lead. If you get a bleep, that means you've got a short on that patch lead. One point is, as far as the antenna goes, if you put the multimeter on the antenna feed, you'll probably get a short if it's connected to your antenna. We've had this in the comments before. It just seems to happen. It happens on my antennas. The only way you can test your antenna feed run is if you disconnect it, if you can get to it from your antenna. Leave it free, and then you can test, and then you shouldn't get a continuity. But don't worry about that if your antenna's connected. Likewise, obviously check the antenna plug itself. Again, these can be pulled about. There could be a short in the plug, especially the earth braiding. Make sure you haven't got a stray earth braid touching the center feed of the antenna. And then also your coaxial feed, has it been disturbed? Have you got a twist or a bend in the coaxial feed? Even a tight coil can cause you a problem with your SWR. Has something heavy been placed on the coax feed? Has it been crushed? So you need to sort of trace that back to the antenna, go all the way back. Obviously when it goes outside, there is the possibility of damage, like rodent damage. It's not unknown for rats and mice to chew coaxial cable. Again, so test that all the way back to the antenna. If you're fortunate enough to have another CB radio, then swap that out and try that, see if you've still got the same problem. It helps if you've got a cheap little SWR meter like these analog meters. These have been around forever. They're not expensive. I suppose things have gone up, but they're probably about £17-18 or something delivered now, and very, very good to have one of these just to cross-reference what you're getting on the radio. It's very rare, in my experience, that you'll have a problem in the radio itself causing a high SWR. It normally is your antenna plug that's shorting, that's gone bad, or a patch lead, or as I say, something's happened to your coaxial cable. But there is the antenna, of course, to check, and sometimes people forget that. So let's just go outside and quickly have a visual check of the antenna. The first thing to do, which is quite obvious really, but a lot of people overlook this, is just go outside and eyeball and check your antenna. Maybe there's been some high winds recently. You might even find a top section has snapped off, or the antenna could be bent or broken. So just have a quick look, make sure it's all there. And that covers what I know about sudden high SWRs. Obviously, anything I've missed, please add that in the comments. That wasn't my problem this time around. My problem, and I kind of knew it was happening, I knew it was coming on, was, as I say, after the winter, my SWR has just crept up and crept up and crept up until it's got to the stage where I need to do something about it. So this second half of the video is basically, you'll follow me through the process that I went through to find and cure this creeping high SWR, and hopefully some of the points that I cover in this video will also be your problem. So anyway, let's get on with that. I know it sounds daft, but if you've got a pair of binoculars, they come in quite handy to look at your antenna. I'm on the maximum zoom here of my camcorder. So yeah, the antenna is looking a little bit dirty. The plastic section here has gone all green, which I don't mind because that helps disguise it. But what I'm looking for really is at these sections, just make sure the amalgamation tape is still intact. I'm looking for any rust streaks coming down the antenna, telling me that they've been breached, but I can't see anything like that. And moving on to the top section here, which is the fire up section, again that looks quite clean of rust, and the fire up section here doesn't look damaged at all. So that looks all good. Just going to go maximum zoom now at the bottom antenna connection, and once again it's dirty, but the amalgamation tape looks intact. Not seeing any signs that that's been breached, so hopefully I might get away with it. So when you're trying to tackle an SWR problem, you want to get everything back to basics. We've done that visual check on the antenna, and okay, it's looking a bit old, but I can't see any splits or breaks or pieces missing. So the next thing is now to try and eliminate all of the possibilities that could be causing problems. This switching box I've had in the shack for a number of years. Strangely enough, this is one of the cheaper ones that you can buy. it wasn't expensive. I forget how much I paid, about £20 I think. I have tried different switching boxes before, and people always ask me, are they any good? And I've had trouble with all of them. This type are very, very common, and they tend to corrode on the terminals, and they need to be opened up and sprayed with contact spray periodically. This one so far hasn't really been a problem, but it has been a very wet winter. But what I want to do is I want to remove this out of the equation. So this is where the antenna comes into the shack with RG213, and that is the feed for the shed, which literally just goes across the shed roof. So we're going to remove this and just put a new barrel connector in, which will eliminate the switch being the problem. First thing, of course, is to check for corrosion, and I haven't disconnected this for a while. Yeah, okay, that does look a little bit dirty. I'm not sure if it's corroded, I don't think so. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a little bit of wire wool or some abrasive pad, and we're going to clean that up. So nothing fancy, just an abrasive pad here. Just going to give it a good clean there. Hopefully you can see that on camera. If there is any corrosion there, that will cause a resistance, and that will unbalance the antenna, and that will affect the impedance, which will of course give you a high SWR. There we go. So that looks nice and clean now. Likewise, my feed into the shed, I need to check that. Oh, that is perfectly clean. Hopefully you can see that on camera there, that's perfectly clean. So now we can go ahead and fit that new barrel connector, this new barrel connector, and eliminate that switch entirely. And we can come back to the switch if it turns out that it is the switch and not the antenna, and that's what I'm hoping. I really do not fancy having to bring down that antenna anytime soon. But of course, if I have to, I have to. So I've noticed a bit of an issue here, that this connector, and it could be the threads on the connectors are not perfect, but this is refusing to go tight. I mean, that's quite loose, and again, that isn't making a very good contact. So I'm going to put a little tiny bit of grease on this, but that might be telling me that maybe the threads on this 213 coaxial plug, maybe they're slightly damaged, because I have disconnected this and reconnected it a few times. Right, so I've gone and got a slightly older one that I've used before, and this should fit fine, and it does, look at that. So okay, there's nothing wrong with my 213 plug. Just shows you, doesn't it? Just shows you that new things aren't always the best. Right, so there we go. So simple barrel connection now, straight to the antenna. That's eliminated that switch. Right, we're all connected up. So we're on channel 20 on the UK FM, and here you can see I'm receiving signals. I've got quite a lot high noise level, which is typical when it's raining, but the channel is clear. So I just need to calibrate the meter, so we'll stick that over to the FWD forward setting there, and then we bring that back to the infinity mark. Just about there, and then we put it onto reference and we keep up. Well, that's a bit odd. So according to that, I've got a perfect 1-to-1 SWR. I'd like to believe that, but I'm not sure if I trust that meter now. Let me change channel. Let me go down to, let's go to channel 40. Check that it's clear. And that's set. We have to recalibrate every time we change channel, so we'll set that again. I find it hard to believe it would be that good. Key up. It's not even moving. I'm gonna go and get another meter because I just don't trust the fact that meter didn't move on the Muppets. Let me go and get my digital meter. Right, I've swapped over to my digital meter. We can do the whole thing all over again, just to double check. So channel 20 on the UK FM. So there we go, SWR 1.1. Yeah, 1.1. And we'll just go quickly up to channel 40. SWR 1.1 or just below 1.1. Channel 1. Yeah, starting to come up now. 1.3. And then I'll change it to the Euro blocks, and we'll go straight to channel 1 on the EU block there. So this will be the highest reading. Yeah, so that's quite high, isn't it? 1.9. That's getting a little bit uncomfortable. But that is my lowest frequency. If we go to channel 40, 1.5, channel 30, my 305, 1.6, 93% efficiency. So that SWR has crept up. I believe I had it about 1.2, 1.3 when I originally tuned the antenna, so it has crept up slightly, but it has been very wet again today, and my SWR always goes up when the antenna is wet. I need to check that again in the dry, but 1.6 on my 305 and then dropping as we go higher and 1-to-1 on the UK. I'm certainly not going to rip the antenna down and try and adjust it for that. I'm quite happy with that. I wish it was a bit lower, but I will stick with that. It's not the 2.4, 2.5 I'm getting up in the loft shack. So there's obviously a problem with the coaxial cable going up. That's the mini 8 feed. So I now need to have a closer look at that, and also that switch box which is behind me. I think I need to lubricate that with some contact spray and double check all of the connections. So just like before, I need to check the feed here. This is the one that goes up to the loft. That feels very nice and tight. I think that looks okay to me. There's no, I can't see any corrosion on that. I suppose I could just give it a little bit of a white round with the abrasive pad. There we go. But yeah, no, that looks absolutely fine. So what I'm left with now is the switching box itself, which might just have a slight bit of corrosion on the switch connectors inside. Now I can either take this apart, or I can simply exercise it. It feels quite smooth. Give it a nice bit of a turn there. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do now is reconnect this, go back up into the shack. Now I've cleaned this and exercised the switch. and then take the little digital SWR meter up there and the MACOM, and we'll test it up there. Right, we're back up in the main shack now. So same tests as before. I know this is getting a bit boring for you, but UK FM channel 20. Here we go. 1.3 roughly. Absolutely fine. Quickly up to channel 40. Check that it's clear. Slightly 1.34. Channel 1, it should go up now. Oh, it's actually gone down on this feed. 1.17. Obviously different feed of coaxial cable. Now we're going to change to the Euro band. Channel 40. 1-to-1. My favourite, channel 305. Yeah, 1-to-1 almost again. And channel 1, which should be my highest SWR. 1.2, 1-to-3. So that just shows you the difference a length of coaxial cable can make. Obviously that's helped my SWR coming up to the shack. So yeah, I'm actually quite happy with that. I think the problem is the fact that the antenna is wet. It may have a slight issue taking in water, and that switch in the shed shack, that cheap switch, is probably getting oxidized, and by me just giving it a wiggle after the winter seems to have done the trick. But I will keep an eye on it and make sure that it doesn't climb any higher. So there you go. Yeah, rising SWR, it can be annoying, it can be a bit frightening, and it can be a bit frustrating, but it's always a good idea to keep an eye on it, even if you just buy one of these very, very cheap £15 SWR meters, so you can just cross-reference, you can check the SWR meter on your radio just to make sure it's okay. Your radio probably will have a high SWR warning anyway, and that's probably what's going to trigger your problem, is when you key up and you get that. Well, there you go. Look, I hope this video is helpful for you if you're starting out in CB radio and you've got problems with your SWR. As I say, I've taken you through it step by step as I've analysed it, and hopefully you'll have the same sort of issues and problems as me. There's the thumbs up from Fred in the Shed. Thank you for your view time. If you get a second before you go, just flick me a thumb up down below. I'd appreciate it. But as always, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for dropping by. Look after each other for me. Catch you on the next one, guys.